The next thing I'd like to show you is why the M square, the M quad, the M as a measurement is not obsolete, is not archaic as Wikipedia or other online sources may tell you. It's the basis for type design. Everything is based on the M square. When you're designing a typeface, you're looking at an M square and you put a letter into that square and figure out how much of that M square you're going to use in terms of width, but the height of the M square also tells you how tall you're going to make the letters. In the old days, like say linotype machines, an M square is divided into 12 units and each letter fits a given number of those units. A capital W might be 13, 14 units because it might be wider than the M square, whereas the lowercase n might be 5 or 6 units, the lowercase o 7 units. So it was divided into twelfths. Later digital systems, they were doing 18 unit M's and then 54 unit M's. And the current M space for digital type design is a 1000 unit M. And where would you see that? Well, I'll tell you where you will notice that. I want to manually kern this. These units of kern are thousandths of an M. If I kern this minus 100, that is 1/10 of an M space. And I like to demonstrate that with M dashes and M spaces. This is a Palatino M dash. This is a Helvetica M dash. Notice that the Helvetica M dash goes the full width of an M space, whereas the Palatino M dash has side bearings built into it so that it won't run into letters. If you look down here at this Palatino linotype dash, which is pretty close to letters, if I track this tighter, it would touch the letters. But going to my glyph palette where I can see every glyph in the font, I mentioned OpenType fonts have done a lot to advance typography. Fonts, the TrueType fonts and the Adobe Type 1 fonts were limited by the 8-bit keyboard. They had no more than 255 characters because that's all you could access with the keys on the keyboard. Because it was an 8-bit keyboard, it could only generate 8-bit codes, which means 0 through 255. And then each of those codes would be assigned a glyph, a letter, a number, a punctuation, 8-bit. The Unicode is based on 16-bit rather than 8-bit. 8-bit, you're limited to 255 characters. Unicode, 16-bit, the number of glyphs you could assign with a 16-bit number is 65,535. So for example, in Palatino linotype, I have all of these glyphs. I have enough room for not only all of the basic Latin alphabet and numbers, etc. I can also have Greek and Cyrillic. And if I was using, say, Adobe Caslin, has no Cyrillic, but it has what we call florons and ample alternate characters. If I try Chaparral Pro, it has all of those glyphs and a lot of other strange characters. So getting back to Palatino here, Palatino has a figure dash and an N dash and an M dash and a horizontal bar. And the horizontal bar is as wide as the M space, and the M dash has side bearings built into it so that it won't run into letters. Whereas in some cases, this might be too tight in a small size. Or if I had optical kerning applied, it would tighten it up more. And if I tracked it, it would definitely start to run into letters. In Palatino linotype, you get an M dash and horizontal bar that is as wide as an M dash. Getting back to my demo up here, so I'll use the M dash, which is this one. If I only want to find punctuation, I can say, just show me punctuation, and there's the dashes. If you need to find a dash on the keyboard, you have a hyphen key. Shift on the hyphen key is an underscore. I don't actually use the underscore. There's an underscore function that works better and is more adjustable. Alt or Option hyphen key gives you an N dash. Alt Shift hyphen gives you an M dash, or on the PC, you can do that, Alt or Option, Alt on the PC, Option on the Mac. Or on a PC, you can do Alt 0150 if you happen to remember some of the more common numerical codes for these. Alt 151 is the M dash. There's a few other common ones that I use often enough to know that, but now that we have a glyph palette, I just go to the glyph palette to find what I'm looking for. The most recent 10 will show up in the top there if I'm using them repeatedly. That comes in handy. In the type pull down, insert special character, hyphens and dashes, M dash, N dash, discretionary hyphen, non-breaking hyphen. Discretionary hyphen, if you think something may hyphenate and you want to choose where it hyphenates, you can use the discretionary hyphen to get it to break where you want it to. Non-breaking hyphen, if you have a compound word and you don't want it to break apart at the end of a line, you can use a non-breaking hyphen to keep that compound word together. Other things that you might need typographically, you can find here. Insert white space, M space or M quad, Control Shift M, Command Shift M on the Mac. N space or N quad, Control or Command Shift N. Non-breaking space, non-breaking space, fixed width. Sometimes that's handy. Hair space, sixth space, thin space, quarter space, third space, punctuation space, figure space, flesh space. So there's things you can insert that way. Break characters if you want a column break, page break, whatever. There's a number of other things. You should explore these. We won't be using all of these. So here I have an M dash, and right here I'm going to stick the cursor between those so that I can kern, because kerning occurs between characters. If you select a range of characters, you would use tracking to uniformly adjust inter-character spacing. But if you want to just adjust between a pair of letters, you use kerning. And the optical kern, what that does is automatically adjust every pair of letters individually, and also so that they all work together in whatever situation you have them typeset. But for now, I'm just going to kern these two, and I'm going to kern it, say, -100. That didn't do much. -500, and that didn't do much. And if I go 1,000, it goes all the way to the left side of my N dash. This is just a red underscore here. And this is the hidden character, Command Option I. You can turn that off, Command Option I, turn it on. This is the hidden character that represents an M dash, so that in each of these cases where I have something, like if I just type a word space, it gives me that floating dot. Hard return is the end of a paragraph. A soft return, shift return, that gives me a return that still allows the paragraph to function as a paragraph. If I have to have a forced return in a paragraph, that's how I want to do it, to keep the paragraph functions working together. For example, I might have space before or after a paragraph. Let's say I need space after the paragraph, and I want to add, let's say, 30 points to this because this is 100-point type. You can see it's added space every place I have a hard return, indicated by the pilcrow, the archaic paragraph mark. If I return, it goes down 120 points plus the 30 that I added in the paragraph setting. Paragraph control panel, I added 2p6 or 30 points after that. If I change this to a soft return and take out that, this is now treated as a single paragraph, and so it doesn't add space in the middle like it does if I make a hard return with that paragraph setting. Another thing about OpenType fonts that has greatly improved typography, it brings us actually back to something that used to happen with, say, linotype machines and monotype machines, where we had a lot more opportunities, a lot more options than we did with an 8-bit digital font. The things that we're using as phototype in the 60s, 70s, 80s, early digital type, where they were just digitizing the existing photo fonts, which may not have had extended character sets. To show you one more thing here. This is from a 1930s linotype manual, and this is a set of characters for a linotype machine. And you can see that it's more than you probably expect to find on your keyboard. There are extra characters, there are fraction characters that you don't have on your keyboard. There are other punctuation marks, section marks, double daggers, paragraph mark, a pound sign, and I think this one refers to weight, whereas this is pound sterling. It has small caps, lowercase, italics. These would all be on a single font. A single typecase or mat case would have duplex characters that had, say, the Roman capital and the italic capital on a single mat, so that you choose position that you want to cast it. It has swash characters. These might be on auxiliary mat cases that you would use with a second keyboard on the larger linotype machines. Old style figures, one-letter Roman logo types. These are what we call ligatures, where you have two or three characters together on a single type body. It wasn't possible to kern on a linotype machine, so they had molds or mats that would cast these that would be impossible to do any other way. I like to just draw a line on this thing here. And you can see that with mats that are vertical pieces that are parallel to each other, there's no way you could cast this on two separate molds. You couldn't get those molds together. The molds don't slant. So they were cast together as a single piece. And a number of two-letter logotypes for things that you simply could not do other than by cutting the letters apart and filing them. So all of these would have to be cast this way. You also had the option of having long descenders in certain type sizes. These were available, and short descenders in case you were setting like things in newspapers where they want to cram as much type in as possible, and you need short descenders to have limited space between the lines. That's not a good idea sometimes, but sometimes sometimes it's desirable or necessary. So that's the quality that type was before, either on a linotype or a monotype machine, the quality of typography that was possible before PhotoType. PhotoType, you generally didn't have all of these. You might have had some of those, and you would have to have an auxiliary typeface, an auxiliary font to do that. In early digital type, in Adobe Type 1 and TrueType fonts, you had to have an additional auxiliary font in order to have, say, small caps and old style figures. With OpenType, we can have all of this stuff together in a single font. So getting back to my demo here, if I select these and hit the small caps button, in fonts that were adapted from Adobe Type 1 or TrueType fonts without any additional effort put into them, they just shrink down the capital and they don't look right when you do that. True small caps are drawn to be proportional to the capitals and to be optically similar to the lowercase letters so that they don't look out of place. Again, going to my glyph palette, small capitals. These are actually drawn this way. These aren't just shrunken down capitals. I have a capital A and a lowercase a, and I apply small capitals to this one. What you did in the old days, if you didn't have a true small cap, you shrunk this down to 75%. It does not appear to be consistent in weight with the other letters. It appears too light. If I really want this to look like it should be a small cap, I think probably 72% is the better height if I had to make a fake small cap, but it still doesn't look right. It's lighter than the letters it's supposed to be with. Compare the actual lowercase letters, it's not going to fit in. It's not going to look right in text. If this was in the middle of a page of text, it would be a light spot in the middle of the text that just wouldn't look right. It's always better, if you have small caps, to use actual small caps. Things I usually demonstrate here is this. This is an end dash, and this is an end space. And if I kern this, kern between minus 500 points, you can see that it exactly overlaps it because an end space is exactly half of an M space.